Hey there! Many Constant Worlds is a podcast following the meta disjointed journey through the Dark Tower series by Stephen King.
I'm Kat, she, her, and I'm wondering if I shine.
I'm Taryn, they, them, possibly also Randall Flagg. It remains to be seen. And I'm absolutely an unreliable guide. And I can confirm that Kat does in fact shine. Both bright like a diamond and in the Danny Torrance sense.
How about in the Danny Trejo sense?
Nobody can shine like Danny Trejo.
That's fair. Alright, so for anybody who has already listened to the other train wrecks we've put together...
I feel like you deserve a prize of some kind.
You probably do. We're still trying to figure out what the fuck we're doing. Well, you know what? We're gonna keep that train rolling.
Trejo's tacos.
I want some Trejo's tacos. I want to go to LA just for the sake of going to his taco place. Our reading path is we're going to follow some connections to other Stephen King novels as we come across them in the Dark Tower books, which is acting as our central reading station.
We made it a whole line into the Gunslinger.
We did, and then we had to change. We always have to change. Though I do feel like that is partially because you knew the secrets there.
I knew some secrets.
You knew a secret.
I knew like half a secret. I knew what was gonna get me to the eyes of the dragon. Knew what was getting me to my fate. But this is the problem. I have no I can't. I have no sense of delayed gratification. So now it's already done, and where do we go from here?
I mean, we still have a lot of Eyes of the Dragon left after this.
Oh, you sound thrilled.
It's not like that. I think it was this part. Yeah, it must have been because the first part of this was not so bad. It's got a lot of info though. It's a big info dump. I've got you. You can see my flags.
Your Randall flags?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we'll call them now. They're Randall flags.
For those of you who can't see this, which is every listener, because we don't have cameras or anything going, she has I don't know, somewhere between 10 and 100,000 little flaggy things that are all different colors in her copy of Eyes of the Dragon. I send voice messages of interesting tidbits as we're reading, and I barely do that. I'm not an organized individual, but yeah.
Yeah, no, and I can take pictures of that for socials.
I think you have to now.
So everyone can see the madness. I've seen books that are a lot more tabbed up.
You can't tease your fellow type A's with that kind of eye candy and then not do it.
No, this section was, at first it started out, I was struggling to get through it. And then stuff just started happening. And it was kind of like, oh, okay, so now the interesting bits are coming in. And we're not just getting lots of back info.
Yeah, this book really is a lot like climbing a mountain and then jumping off a cliff. Or climbing all of the stairs of the Needle and then jumping out the window with the way the pacing is in it. It feels...
Yeah, this one, I would love to know exactly what was the thought behind that pacing.
I was gonna say cocaine, but I think he had finished doing cocaine by this point, and it was the recovery of Stephen King's dance with drugs. Doesn't mean he wasn't thinking about it.
Well, and I mean, if it's adapted from a story he used to just tell his kid and he decided to expand, that could also have something to do with the weird roller coaster that this is.
Well, wait until we get to actual Dark Tower books, because I think that's probably a lot of it too.
Okay.
And then I've been watching a lot of Lord of the Rings. I've listened to like a book and a half of The Lord of the Rings. I don't think I will ever actually sit with a physical copy.
It was Tom Bombadil, wasn't it? Or was it all the songs?
You're saying the same thing. The Tom Bombadil section is nothing but songs. Andy Serkis can only make that so much better. But
he does make it better.
Oh, yeah, significantly. But the pacing feels similar.
Yeah.
Where it's just a lot of like slow, 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 and then boom, and then slow, slow, slow. I mean, that's the difference. This is really short, so it's just really slow, fall off a cliff. It's just these slogging, meandering, slow bits, and then all of a sudden everything is happening and you don't know what's going on.
Yes.
Actually, I wonder, like, the way that, like, war is described and battles are described feels a lot like that. That'll be for the Tolkien podcast. But it feels because you're marching and nothing is happening and nothing is happening. And then you have a battle and everything's chaos and everything is everywhere. And then you have the aftermath and then you're marching and then you're slogging and then everything is chaos for like 12 hours or 2 days while you're having a battle. Of course, that was before trench warfare. I don't know how that's changed things.
Alright, so as you can probably kind of surmise, we have kept reading The Eyes of the Dragon. We read stanzas 51 to 83, and with that we saw the dawning of Thomas the Lightbringer's reign, and Peter the accused daddy killer's imprisonment.
Does anybody else get Game of Thrones vibes, especially with the names?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And then I just think about that, like, picture that circulated of George R.R. talking with Stephen King about, like, the writing process. And Stephen King's, like, sitting there with him, and I think he asks him, do you ever, like, have trouble writing? And he's just like, no. Because he writes, like, 6 pages a day, and that's how he turns out all these books. Yeah, that's what I think of. And then I think of the, George R.R. Martin in the bubble.
When everyone was, like, doing absolutely anything that isn't finishing, like, Game of Thrones.
Winter?
Yeah.
I think. And that's not even, like, the last book. We will never have those books. It's never gonna end.
Stephen King doesn't have... I don't think he has the function inside of him to be self-conscious. He just doesn't... I don't think he gives a shit. He's like... Because he's from Maine, and I don't think people from Maine have that function. They're just like, look, shit is cold here. Life is hard. You either like my shit or you don't like my shit. I don't give a fuck. Get out. Like, have a crab. Like, or no, it's lobster in Maine. Have a lobster. Get out. Like,
do you think that's because, like, if we go under the logic that people kind of, like, slow down around when they get into substances that they are addicted to, and he, like, did talk in those intros about feeling like he was just stuck at 19 for so long. Do you think that's just the confidence of a 19-year-old white boy?
No, because I think even white boys at 19 are just, they're still in their, like, nobody look at me, I want to die era. I just don't think he ever had it. I think he just was too, like, and I'm sure, like, if anybody ever talked to him, like, and please call me, but I think if Stephen King ever, like, if you asked him, he'd be like, no, of course, I was insecure, I'm still insecure, I'm a normal human, I'm a person. No, he's not. He's not normal. I think there's some people who are just like, no, I don't give it, I think if you write 6 pages every day, you're not thinking about it. You truly do not have that inside of you to second guess the words that you're typing on your life, like on your computer or whatever. I guess the computer to me is life. But no, like, you can't be thinking about whatever it is you're putting down.
You know what that is? That is having originally started writing on a fucking typewriter and not being able to undo your shit that easily.
Which, doesn't that make it feel like you'd write even less?
Yeah.
That doesn't feel like you'd write more.
That's what I'm saying. Like, that's just like, nope. Whatever goes on the page is what goes on the page because I can't undo it.
What that feels like to me, I agree. I think to an extent it's I feel like it's just, no, I will have to fucking live with it. I will just live with whatever it is that I write, and it's here now. This exists now. But I think it's also like, I just want it done. I want it done, and then I want to go do other shit.
So, yeah, we finally get some napkins. The ever-promised, thing sort of starts to happen.
It's time.
It's time. It is time for napkins. Peter is starting out as a sad boy in this section as he comes to the realization that Flag must have been the one that set him up. So he decides to concoct a napkin plot to escape the needle. I was trying like hell to remember how this came about. Like, what the fuck was it he was going to do with the napkins? Because, like, the narrator's all like, oh, you probably already figured out what he's going to do. And I'm like, is he going to tie them together? Because I'm pretty sure he doesn't do that. I think he does something else.
Never. I don't... If somebody actually figured out, like, the first time going through the book, exactly what it was he was going to do. The number of threads... The fact that he's doing it with threads, maybe I'm just picturing a different kind of napkin, but I always picture it with like finished edges. So how is he getting threads? I don't even think it's the narrator assuming that you're smarter than you are either. It almost feels rude. Oh, I'm sure you've probably figured this out by now. No, you know I haven't. Stop it.
Because I'm sitting here going I've read this book before and I can't remember what he's going to do with these napkins. I just remember he uses them some way, in a way that he has to hide. But I blocked out what his plan was. And his plan means that he needs some crap because his plan is stupid. I'm sorry, his plan is stupid.
I mean, what would your plan have been?
I don't know that I would have had one. I don't really understand how he thought that this was going to work.
He's 16. I think he's 16. I'm almost positive.
Yeah, but he's presented as being very smart.
Okay, think to yourself at 16. Okay, I'm gonna be very complimentary. You're a very bright individual. Think back to yourself as a shitty 16-year-old, and you're thrown in a Rapunzel tower with no way out. And don't forget, because you're either skipping or we're not there yet, the part where he has to beat up his fucking jailer in order to make literally anything happen, which I feel like is just, that's social commentary on the state of prisons. I'm not shocked. He's doing all this and he knows he's innocent, and he comes up with this plan after fasting for a week because otherwise he can't think straight or whatever, which...
You had to detox from all that food?
It was a heavy metal detox. Isn't that what they call it? Heavy metal toxins or whatever. I don't know.
I don't know anything about detoxing. I know people do it.
Well, it depends. Are we talking about a legitimate detox from drugs? Or are we talking about detoxing from all of those toxins that people think your body doesn't know how to flush out? The secret is your body does know how to flush it out. That's why you have kidneys and a liver and organ. Now, I'm going to be on a soapbox. But yeah, think back to yourself as a shitty 16-year-old. What's your so much better plan?
I'm probably dying in the tower.
Just being really emo about it.
Most likely, yeah. No, it's just okay, I'm accepting my life here in this tower now.
Just shouting MCR songs that you can remember. Hey, out the window.
He does have a window. You might as well. Have a little fun with it.
See if people throw coins, try to make it into the window. It's I can't do anything with these.
They can put some money on my books. That'll be how I do stuff.
Can you imagine?
Fund my Kickstarter and I'll get a loot.
When I was a young boy. I will put money on your books to shut the fuck up.
Damn.
Out there again the next day. I already paid you to stop. That was yesterday.
Yeah, no, every day's a new day.
Just start at dawn.
You don't need a rooster then.
You are the rooster. I know one My Chemical Romance song, so I can only make that joke with.
It doesn't matter. It was the Black Parade, and that's the important part. Well, either way, his plan is to take some fucking napkins and his mother's dollhouse and make a rope. This is his plan.
And if you were also the Julia Roberts meme about it, apparently you're in good company, because the narrator's hella rude about it, but everybody was. Or maybe we're dumb. I don't know.
He hatches his plan, and in order to, like, make this happen, he does have to beat the crap out of his jailer, Warden Beeson? Basin? I don't know how to... B-E-S-O-N. How was that said?
You know, I'm listening to the audiobook right now, and now I can't remember.
The warden, the, like, head warden? Because there's two, like, other bitches who work for him who just kind of watch things.
I don't even think they got names.
I don't think they did either. They're just, like, the lesser wardens.
Was it Warden or was it Warder? I think it's, like, Warder Basin. Warder Basin. It's
okay.
Probably not this important. I'm just curious now in my brain.
Well, either way, that guy, the guy in charge of the needle and the, like, jailing, Peter does have to kick his ass so that he can send a letter off to Judge, there's another name I'm not entirely sure how it's supposed to be.
Anders Pena.
Pena, okay. And this letter has the request for the dollhouse and the napkins, as well as, like, a bribe for the warden, so he'll keep his mouth shut and he'll do all of these things. And the judge sends Dennis, the guy who found the damning proof against Peter,
Dennis!
to take care of the napkin half, and Ben Stodd, Peter's bestie from childhood, is taking care of the dollhouse portion. This is starting a thing that is very excruciatingly told to us that is going to take years.
He didn't get better food. He didn't get, like, books or anything else to do. He just got... I like to think in my head that he's also playing with the dollhouse and not, like, just focusing on this constantly, day in and day out.
I mean, to quote another Stephen King book, all work and no play make Jack a dull boy.
I thought you were going to go Shawshank Redemption.
I have never watched or read Shawshank Redemption.
What?
Well, we're going to correct that, right?
Okay, so I've only, like, seen it, and it doesn't matter because my brain went to The Green Mile, which is not the Shawshank Redemption, but they're both great. Clearly, Stephen King has a thing about prison breaks. The Green Mile is amazing. The Shawshank Redemption I also have seen at some point in my life, probably better. The Green Mile is very sad. Shawshank Redemption is just great. I think it's also sad, but it's not... I can't believe you haven't seen... You've seen The Green Mile, though, right?
Nope.
Dear God.
We're fixing these things. That's the point of this.
People.
Because we're going to do the movies, or at least I'm going to do the movies. You're welcome to join.
No, of course. Yeah, of course.
We're going to do the movies. We'll just set the mics up, and we will play them and talk as we watch these movies for live reactions.
I will have to... I mean, even if there wasn't a mic there, I would be talking anyways. You might as well just record it.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point. It is like our heckling of Disney movies. I mean, to be perfectly fair, I have watched the Family Guy version of the Shawshank Redemption. It's about a third of an episode, and...
I'm about to get up from the table and just let you just finish
again
everything on your own. I'm insulted. I'm insulted for Stephen King. He did both of those, right? I'm not out of my mind.
I think so. You know what? That's what the internet's for. We will confirm that we're not ranting about something.
Positive that Avenue Q told us exactly what the internet is for, and that is not it. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, Google Avenue Q. The internet is for, and you can find out. Happy listener.
Yes. Shawshank Redemption is a 1994 American drama film written and directed by Frank Darabont, based on the 1982 Stephen King novella Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption.
And The Green Mile, too.
That one I'm pretty positive I know is
That
his.
means Shawshank Redemption was before Eyes of the Dragon. So he's just really into prison breaks.
The Green Mile is a 1999 American fantasy drama film written and directed by Frank Darabont and based on Stephen King's 1996 novel of the same name.
Which, by the way, has The Shine in it. Which is why I'm shocked you haven't seen it. Or read it.
I think it has a lot to do with, like, the timing and everything in terms of, like, seeing it.
Yeah.
And then, like, I just remember, like, always seeing The Green Mile in those, like, small installment books.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a compilation of all of them, but that's what I remember.
But yeah, well, I'm still just, because you're such a, because you shine.
Well, we're working on that. We're making all of the connections.
Don't know that there's any Shining references in Shawshank Redemption. I think it's more of just a, it's more of just a straight story, but Green Mile's not. It's very, like...
Well, it did straight up say fantasy in that summary just now, whereas the other one's just like drama.
Yeah.
Just drama. Everything's drama.
Okay.
Okay, so, while Peter is doing his thing, Flag is continuing his plans of trying to destroy Delain. He starts this by getting Thomas to pass the tax law that Sasha had actually stopped Roland from passing. Gets Thomas a whole new name. He's now Thomas the Tax Bringer.
Whispered in pubs, because, as we've talked about, Delain is a absolute monarchy, and if, just like every kingdom in Disney movies... But if you whisper that shit, like, or if he hears you, it'll also be...
F with your head.
Yeah.
Peter also, like, kind of starts to hear some of this stuff, it seems like. He's, like, picking up bits from the wardens because they're all gossips. Frankly, I'm not shocked by this. Men also like to gossip. He's already kind of figured out, you know, Flag is a problem. I think the judge is also, like... When he got that letter, he was sitting there, like, contemplating if he made the right decision of, like, doubt for what was actually happening, too. So...
I have mixed feelings about Anders Pena.
What are your mixed feelings, my true crime-loving friend?
He is the cause of all of the problems here.
Agreed.
But it's because he just is very black and white, but he lets his feelings... kind of get the better of him in a moment. And actually...
He's a Jedi Master?
That's being awfully nice to Anders Pena, but I really like Star Wars. No, it's actually interesting, I think, because I end up rushing that part of the book a lot. I'm listening to the audiobook this time, and actually hearing it said and hearing it with, like, inflection, hearing the way that he's agonizing when he gets those letters and really thinking about, like, did I fuck this up because of my disgust at a young man's tears? Did I, kind of ruin all of, did I condemn my country?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
the
did.
answer is yes. But did I kind of screw the pooch here because of my preconceived notions about how somebody should react in this moment? Basically, he wasn't performing, it's interesting that you say true crime. It's a big thing in true crime of, well, if you're not acting the way that you should be acting in a moment when, the detectives see you behaving. Amanda Knox is a great example of that. Amanda Knox behaved really, quote unquote, oddly, and there's still people who think that she murdered Meredith Kercher, which there's just no way. Like, I'm gonna go, like, I'm happy to go on record. No, it's really sad, and it sucks. It sucks for everybody involved. There's absolutely no fucking way. But she behaved really oddly, and she spent years in an Italian prison because of it. Same concept. And that was... Stephen King wrote this well before, and it's because it's a thing that happens. It happens all the time, and it's the same. I think it's just interesting. It's something that I definitely missed when I was younger, because it's not, I think, interesting in that moment, and it's kind of buried in there. This really, like, human moment of, like, wow, did I screw this up. And then him kind of realizing, oh, I think Peter's up to something, wanting these napkins and wanting this dollhouse, and I'm going to help him with it because I think I fucked this up, but there's not really anything I can do now except for sneak this, like, get this under the...
Work this around.
Yeah. I'm going to kind of help him with this because there is no court of appeal here. And we're not even going to talk about appeals. We talked about that the other night, and it was... I get up in arms about it.
So that in this case, would that be, like, what should have happened is Peter presented some level of reasonable doubt? Or is it just too late for that?
Well, like, right in that moment, I think that with the way that the character of Anders Payne is presented, if he had, like, he did at least in the letter say, like, I didn't do this, and I've chosen to live. If he'd done more than that, it would have just sounded like probably what this dude hears all the time. I'm innocent. I swear to God, I'm innocent. I didn't do this. If he had kept hitting that point, I really think the character as written would have been like, you just won out. It would have been too much.
Yeah.
I don't want to say this way, but the lady doth protest too much, I think. But I think that in this instance, like, what he did was right. He did just the right amount.
I think there is a jury, but we don't really get to talk about the jury or anything. But
yeah.
I can't remember. I know that there were more people who were present.
He's tried and convicted and whatever by, like, noon that day.
Yeah, like, we really didn't get in-depth detail to his trial.
Yeah, Stephen King doesn't really, like, explain what the legal system of Delain. It's not a very complex...
No, it's not.
It's presented as though it's complex. I'm going to bring up Tolkien again. Had Tolkien written this book would have been like 5 times longer, and we would have gone through the whole trial, and first we would have had, like, every section and subsection and, like...
And a trial song.
Oh my God. Why? No.
And a conviction song?
And the putting him away in the needle song. Yes. There would have been a crime song.
Well, in any case, one thing I think is interesting, because I'm pretty sure the judge couldn't figure out what Peter's plan was. He's just like, I know you're up to something, but I also don't know what it is.
Yeah. But apparently we were supposed to.
Yeah. We were supposed to know that Peter was going to, like, tear some threads off a napkin and then use a tiny little loom to loom a fucking rope out of that dollhouse. It is wild. Peter also ends up getting a dream visit from his father, which could suggest that he has a little bit of a shine. He's not presented that way any other time, so I also don't know if this could be Roland's shine, because again, going back to Star Wars, when you shine, you kind of get to become a Force ghost, because that's what happens in Dr. Sleep.
Okay, so in The Gunslinger, when we get there, the big mantra, like, the thing is, like, remember the face of your father, you have forgotten the face of your father. Like fathers are a big fucking deal.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, someone clearly had feelings.
Yeah.
When it comes to father relationships.
Yeah, do you think it's about his dad, or do you think it's about himself as a dad?
I think it's probably a bit of both.
Fair.
I think that's also why, like, this story, we get 2 sons. Even though this was a story for his daughter.
Right.
You know, he's focusing very heavily on how he interacts with 2 sons, which Stephen King also has 2 sons.
How fucked is that, too? She's like, yeah, thanks, Dad. I'm glad you wrote this story for me. You wrote no daughters. Thanks, Dad.
So,
I wrote the girl to have mom's name. Thanks, Dad.
I do think that it's a little bit of all of the above, because it's a trend with Stephen King books in general of something about a father-son dynamic, because it's the same with Danny Torrance and Jack Torrance. You know, Jack obviously shined, so did Danny. Pretty positive Wendy did not. Wendy didn't know what the fuck was going on in her house most of the time.
And no daughters.
No daughters. I'm almost positive that the writer in Desperation, if I remember correctly, it's been years since I read that book, in Desperation becomes like a father figure to the boy in that story.
I'll tell you right now, in The Gunslinger, it's the same, because you have Roland and his dad. Roland has several older male figures, and then there will be a really important relationship between him and Jake, the boy.
Yeah.
In both The Gunslinger, the book, and then throughout the Dark Tower series. There's also Eddie. Eddie is a weird relationship because there's like father-son bits there, but there's also kind of brotherly bits there. Like, it's just weird.
Yeah. And also in The Eyes of the Dragon, Dennis and Brandon,
yes.
Dennis and Brandon, because I also have a theory about Dennis having a bit of a shine.
Yeah.
Again, it's like this connection between fathers and sons.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think that's why Thomas doesn't make a very good king and Peter does.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about that, diving back in, about the idea of Dennis maybe having a little shine, he also drinks, and his dad drinks.
Yep.
They have to get in on that, like, they had their favorite, like, bourbon or barley wine or whatever.
Have to dampen it down.
You have to do something to deal with it. There was a book, I think I've mentioned it before, that he wrote with Peter Straub called The Talisman.
Yes. Which is Benstad, by the way.
And not only did they have to, not only did they have essentially the shine, but the drink that they used to, like, flip into other worlds was alcohol.
So we got daddy issues, alcoholism. We'll figure out what else. Think about jail. I don't know if this is like a fear of prison or something.
I wonder, I'm positive Stephen King has probably
I think he's probably
been like in lockup at some point.
I don't know that he's ever gone to someplace like prison, but maybe like that's how he keeps himself out, is like going, no, look, I can imagine it being this awful place. And he doesn't want to, a way out it with some guy he meets in the yard.
I need him and Dean Koontz to do, like, a way out now. It's wild to me.
Either Force Ghost Roland shows up, or Thomas possibly shines enough to, like, reach out. There's something happening here. It could also be a fever dream. Could also just be very sick fever dream, and none of it meant anything, and we just wasted the last, 5 minutes. Regardless.
If Liam Neeson played Roland in the Eyes of the Dragon movie that I keep being promised and keeps never happening, I would die happy.
He does have a particular set of skills.
Drinking and shooting a bow and farting.
Yeah. So, regardless...
He was good at it in A Million Ways to Die in the West.
He was good at it. Roland delivers a message, which is, Dennis will know where the sleepwalker goes. And it's going to take forever for this line to pay off, much like the napkins. It does finally pay off. It just feels like it takes forever. There's a lot of in-between happening. Thomas has Dennis stay with him some nights when he doesn't want to be alone. And eventually Thomas does go sleepwalking, and he goes right to the Eyes of the Dragon. And Dennis follows. He also has, a Force Ghost moment with his dad where he feels his father smack him upside the head.
Which is the best use yet of this ability. Thomas even has a moment where he's speaking in Flag's voice. And I do want to point out that in the audiobook, the person narrating actually uses the voice that he uses for Flag. That's how hardcore. It's not like an imitation of Flag's voice. So that idea of Thomas having a shine and, channeling and everything is very... I think we have hit a nail on a head here. The absolute best use of this ability yet, of the Force Ghost ability, of any shine ability, is Brandon coming back from the grave to smack his son upside the head for literally anything. I love just...
Yeah, no, it was kind of hilarious. Dennis, he immediately goes running to the judge as he kind of pieces together what the fuck this must mean. Especially because he is the one whose testimony condemned Peter.
Yeah.
Something he's also felt guilty about. Goes to the judge to basically tell him what he just saw. The two of them have to try and figure out what to do from here. Interesting point that what seems like an incredibly unimportant character suddenly becomes a plot device. Like, Dennis seemed like he wasn't going to be anybody.
Yeah.
And he's two important somebodies. The guy who does all of the plot.
Yeah. He's almost like a Samwise Gamgee, if you will. You don't think he's going to be much of anything. Or maybe more of a Pippin. I don't know. But you don't think he's going to be much of anything. And then all of a sudden he's
everything.
He's everything.
In this segment of The Eyes of the Dragon, we also finally learned a little bit about the history of Delain and Flag, of all people. So, Peter is seeking a new hiding place for his growing rope. He ends up coming across a note from the last royal that got shoved into the needle. Valera? Leven? I have no idea how to say this.
I think you're right. I think the audiobook also pronounces it like Levin... Like Valera.
Levin Valera. That's how it looks to me, is Levin Valera.
I'm saying all this, and anybody who has the audiobook or YouTube is going to be like, no, they're completely wrong. I don't know why if they're listening to the book, why are they saying this? I'll let you in on a secret. It's because the library keeps taking the book back away from me, and then I have to wait and get it back again. I have to wait for whoever keeps getting it to like listen to their section and then give it back to me a couple days later. So I can't recheck right now.
Support your local libraries.
Oh yeah. Yes. Libraries are the best.
They are. Libby is awesome. Having audiobooks on demand all over the place. Amazing.
Ask LeVar Burton. I would like to point out also that Flag is as involved with Delain and just entangled with Delain and their history and politics as Mitch McConnell is with the United States. And don't you dare cut that. It's absolutely accurate.
I thought you were going to go someplace with, like, how involved LeVar Burton is with reading.
No, it's the age. And just to be fair, I Nancy Pelosi too. Both equal opportunity Skeletor references.
I'm sorry, one of those is clearly a tortoise.
That's true. That's why he's so long-lived.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is Skeletor immortal? I don't know that much about the character.
I have no idea.
How do you not know?
It was never my jam.
I count on you to know these things.
Yeah, no, it was just never my thing.
Well, that's what the internet is for, is it not?
That's true. So while you look that up... So, Levin Valera had been imprisoned for murdering his wife, effectively taking him out of the line of succession and passing that title over to Alan. And, I mean, who does not trust a guy named Alan to be your king?
I'm sorry. I got to a line on Skeletor's Wikipedia that Skeletor is a borderline competent sorcerer.
Borderline competent.
Borderline competent sorcerer with control over a vast range of dark magical powers. So now we're talking about Lindsey Graham, calling the wrong person competent. I have very strong political feelings, and if you listen long enough, like 10 minutes, you'll probably figure out where those leanings point left to. But I will say I've never been more proud of Lindsey Graham than finding out that Russia has a bounty on his head and has put out like a warrant for his arrest because he said that Russia sucks for what they're doing to Ukraine right now. But I digress.
So yeah, we have another royal who is accused of a murder that, according to this long-ass letter he writes, he did not commit. And instead, he actually points the direction toward, I don't know, I can't remember if Flag was going by Flag, even in that iteration, or if he had another name, because, Flag led to his own fucking downfall in this book by triggering these things. So he's already, in this current time in Delain, he has shown Thomas the Eyes of the Dragon, and thus now Thomas was able to be there when the murder happened.
Sorry, I'm zoning out because I'm still trying to find out if Skeletor is immortal, but to quickly answer one of your questions, the letter from Valera, I think, ends with him shouting, "'Twas flag, 'twas flag, 'twas flag." So he must have been going by flag at that point.
Yes, it sounds like he was in fact going by flag at that time. So yeah, so Flag has shown Thomas the eyes of the dragon, and that is where Thomas was able to watch his dad get murdered, which Flag still doesn't know that Thomas saw Murder Night, by the way. Then Flag uses sand that literally he's the only person who could have come by it, and claims that it was stolen as a murder weapon. So, again, my true crime loving friend. How solid is that? Like, if I murder someone and then I say that this thing was stolen and I, like, plant it in your room. What? Is anybody gonna believe this? That, oh no, they stole it from me.
I mean, maybe.
Okay.
And as an update, I can't easily find that answer, but did you know that Skeletor is He-Man's uncle?
I think I did know that, actually.
Okay. Well, so bringing my ADHD ass back to actually paying attention. Apologies all around. It depends. Probably not. I mean, I feel like that's a pretty common, like, trope. Oh, that's not mine. I lost that forever ago. That's been missing. If you take, like, a basket full of true crime cases with a murder weapon where it's not, like, bare hands or poison. Poison also you could probably do this with. Like, any murder where there was a weapon that wasn't bare hands, because you can't kind of be like, oh, that's been missing. Though, actually, thinking about it, the idea of I don't remember what happened, I think you could make an argument is also that's been missing. but okay.
Segment not found.
If you like put every case like that into a bucket and you threw like a dart into the bucket, you're gonna hit a case where they're trying to claim like, oh, you know what, that was my gun, but like it's been missing, or I sold it, or I got rid of it. Times when that does work is when you have a police report. My gun was stolen. My javelin was stolen. This thing is missing. Like my car was broke into and my illegally strong taser was stolen. When you have a police report to back it up, that might work. Like somebody took all my random cyanide pills. They're just missing. Like if you have witnesses to you missing these things. Not your weapon, but if somebody else around you has a weapon that goes missing a few months around somebody kind of mysteriously dying, and it can kind of be pointed to you, that can really work against you. That happened to Jodi Arias. Allegedly, she was convicted. She's in prison for it. Her, I think, parents or grandparents had a break-in, and only their gun went missing. And then, like, that kind of gun was used. They never recovered the murder weapon, so they weren't able to, like, do ballistics or anything to match it to make sure that that was the gun that murdered. Oh my gosh, I feel awful because I can't remember his name, and that's important. You gotta put victims forward. Travis Alexander. That dude wasn't a grade A dude, but being a douchebag is no reason to be murdered, and he was horribly, brutally murdered. They never recovered the gun that it happened with, but it was that kind of gun. It just sure seemed likely because the only thing missing was that gun. So, I mean, unless the like grandparents or parents did it and were just saying our gun was stolen. But again, like I was saying, they have the paperwork to back it up. They reported it stolen way before the murder happened. So if you're going to commit a murder and you want to pull off, oh, I don't have a baseball bat, hide it beforehand. Make sure to fill out some kind of police report where lay that foundation early. Flag doesn't do this. Nobody knows that this sand exists. Nobody knows what it does or how it acts. And in the scene where he's showing them, he purposefully plays it up and makes the sand, like he adds things to the sand, and they still don't really understand how it works. he kind of adds like danger to it that doesn't need to be there in order to make it seem more heinous. Almost like a baseball bat that you wrap like plastic barbed wire around, like it's not really going to do anything, but it looks really scary. But because nobody knew it existed, he couldn't very well say before the big moment, oh, that's been gone. Those are the kind of things that Anders Pena should have noticed, but he was too busy looking at Peter and going, how dare you be over the age of like 4 and be crying?
Toxic masculinity.
Which I have a whole take on that whole toxic masculinity thing in Anders Pena, because his manservant or whatever, who I'm convinced is actually his life partner.
I can see it.
It's the way that the voices are done in the, I've never thought it before because it just seemed like a servant. But the way that he teases it, I can't remember his name now, but the way that he teases the like manservant, and then the way the voices get done, he sounds like what's the character? Riff Raff from Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Oh, okay.
He sounds like a very gay Riff Raff. Like stereotypically gay.
You know what? I ship it.
I ship it really hard. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm fine with that.
I'm here for it, but...
So here's my thought. We clearly need to have a mock retrial of Peter.
Oh my god, yes.
Because this was poorly handled all the way around. He is a victim of Delain's legal system in all the wrong ways.
Do I get to be the defense attorney? Can I like spearhead Peter's defense team?
I mean, if that is what he chooses.
Oh, I thought we were talking about like doing as like a special, like.
I don't think we have enough people, but if anybody wants to volunteer, we will make this happen.
Yeah, 100%.
Because I feel like we do need more of an appropriate jury.
So if we get, what, like 50, once we hit 50, Insta followers or something?
Yeah, sure.
50 interested Instagram followers, we're going to redo the trial of Peter.
No last name.
Well, I believe, I actually think he took on the name, Petey King or something? Wasn't that the name? Petey was what he was calling the kid in the dollhouse?
I have no idea. You know what? King Peter. Well, Prince Peter at the time.
Prince Peter.
So the last little bit does, like you mentioned, it does sound like Flag is revealed by the name of Flag. So 450 years ago, he fucked himself over because he set in motion what Peter would actually do to free himself, because Alan's successor was, I think it's Kyla the Good?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. That's how I thought that name was going to be said. I'm going to forever say that because I don't ever want to butcher any names, and I'm going to.
I know I'm getting out of the list a little bit, but Kyla the Good is Roland's mom, or she's way before Roland?
I don't know. I would think she's way before. I think she's like a great grandmother or something, because 450 years back, and like obviously they seem like they're long lived as well. Yeah. But I think his mom was something else.
They're like mini Dunedain. I'm learning so much Lord of the Rings.
I'll have to look that up, because I believe her name is mentioned in here at some point, but I don't remember that point. Either way.
Actually, that's a question that I have for later, once we actually get into the Gunslinger, which is Delain, are they Numenorians? And then the Gunslingers that end up left, are they the Dunedain? But we'll have to...
It's all gibberish to me. You're just saying words that I think you made up.
You say that, but I know that you were raised in a Lord of the Rings household. Because your mom's a huge Lord of the Rings fan. And I also know that you know more about it than I know.
So Kyla the Good wanted to create work for people, and she needed to, because Alan really fucked some shit up. He was essentially Thomas. Didn't have any business trying to rule, made a mess of things, pissed off all the people, so she put people to work making napkins.
So, okay, wait, was Alan maybe a Hoover? I think that's who comes first. I only know that from Perry Mason.
I do believe that Hoover comes first, though I have heard arguments that it's a case of, like, Hoover inherited a bad, like, because you have to like fucking do everything.
Yeah.
Because you have to take on whoever was before you.
Yeah.
I don't know who was before Hoover though, so I don't know who. I want to say like Coolidge.
That sounds right.
So whatever president before Hoover, I've heard arguments that Hoover just kind of got set up with a bad like situation.
Yeah.
And he takes a lot of the crap for it. I don't know enough about American history to say if that is a valid argument. I've just heard a lot that he inherited something shitty and he made the best of it that he could. And he gets shit on a lot, especially because you do have FDR coming in after him.
We are right in that sweet spot of not quite old yet, but certainly not young anymore, where this is starting to be interesting to us as a topic of conversation. But at the end of it, we do also have to ritualistically do like the whole gag me, this is awful, let's watch a cartoon. But
don't forget the ibuprofen.
The purse ibuprofen, the bag ibuprofen, the downstairs ibuprofen, or the upstairs ibuprofen.
Well, we are downstairs, so downstairs, please.
But my bag is closer to me, and I think your purse and or bag is probably closer to you than the downstairs ibuprofen, which I think is in the downstairs bathroom.
Actually, it's in that cabinet right there.
Oh, is it really?
Yes, I have ibuprofen in there.
I was being a smartass. That's incredible.
Taryn doesn't know about my ibuprofen stashes.
Not to be TMI, I can't actually have ibuprofen, so I have no idea where it's stashed around. I'm not supposed to know. Too tempting.
My precious.
Oh my god. Well, speaking of FDR, before we go off on a tangent about the wonders of anti-inflammatory drugs, Kyla the Good makes me think of FDR.
That's fair, yeah.
So when FDR takes office, it's 1933, which is like the worst time to take office, I think. I think at some point I saw somebody, which is the worst way to ever start a story. At some point in my life, I heard from somebody who heard from another person, but I can't remember if it was a YouTube video or a podcast or what, but they were talking about how the Great Depression wasn't the worst period in American history. It was actually like the Reconstruction after the Civil War. But the fact that that's an argument that has to be had tells you how bad the Great Depression was. So when FDR takes office, it's a lot like what we're talking about with Kylo the Good. Everything sucks. Everybody feels like everything sucks. It's a lot like having to take over after what Flagg is hoping to do to Delain. If Flagg was involved in this Allen guy's reign and like fucking ruining everything, I have to imagine he was pretty pissed.
So where were you in 1930?
Where was I in 1930? Mm-hmm. Oh, 100% I was an androgynous, like, lounge singer somewhere and not in America. I was in Europe, like, cabareting that shit up.
That's awful convenient, isn't it?
My family was most certainly not in America yet. We were in Europe. We were a good portion of well, actually, that's not true. I think by then, the Sicilian part of my family had just made it to America. So
right in time.
Yes. Yeah. Right in time to turn this shit around. Because here we have FDR coming in 1933 with his, he has the first New Deal, which ends Prohibition. First it starts, you can, like, get beer. Then he gets Prohibition over entirely, which I feel like is probably really similar to what we're seeing with, like, the weed industry right now, where marijuana is not perfect for everybody. It does not heal and cure all things. Marijuana is not going to fix your broken arm. It's just not, it's not for everything. But it's not as dangerous as everybody always makes it out to be, and it is a great source of tax revenue. Legalize, tax the fuck out of it.
And they do. Oh my god, they do.
And in 1933, they were realizing, fuck, we're dying because all of the alcohol is all run by organized crime and nobody can get to this. We're fucking stupid. And I will just say, I know a lot of history from my own hobbies and from going to school, but I also know a lot of history from Greg Proops, so thank you. That is yet another daddy that I stan, and I would love to hear from you.
You were great on Whose Line.
For a second, I thought you meant me. I was going to be like, well, I don't know what future you've been accessing, but thank you. You're right. I was, am, and will be.
Is that one still on? I know that they had...
Aisha Tyler.
Yeah, but I didn't know if it was still going.
I don't know, but I hope so.
That's fair.
I believe in my heart that Whose Line Is It Anyway is just always going in some shape or form.
I mean, it should be.
Even if it's just in, like, Colin Mockery's basement. He just has, like, Ryan Stiles just tied up. Like, we're going to do a hoedown. Ryan's like, no, okay. Like,
there's always
Colin, you didn't have to go this far. You could have just called.
I think that was just Brad Sherwood.
Yeah. God, that was a good show.
That was a good show. If you ever get the chance to see Whose Line live, do it.
Do it.
It's 100% worth it.
Yes. The New Deal is where we get that whole there's nothing to fear but fear itself. I think what we learn about Kyla the Good really sounds right. Her efforts, as we'll go on to discuss with just hiring old people to make napkins, sounds a lot like Social Security and pensions, which is exactly also what FDR accomplished. A great quote, again, from history.com. So I'm shocked at the lack of aliens in this quote. Is the forces of quote-unquote organized money are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred. I feel like you could copy and paste that over to talking about Flag.
Yeah.
The forces of evil are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred. Or the forces of chaos are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred. Thus getting a moniker like Kyla the Good. So it was actually in the second New Deal, the thing that we associate the most with the New Deal, which is the Works Progress Administration, which is also going to remind you a lot of the napkins and old people just sitting and chatting and making napkins, because the idea of the Works Progress Administration was to put people to work.
Yeah.
And people who could work, wanted to work, needed work. What I didn't know is that they couldn't compete with private industry, which feels like what we're seeing in the book. Kyla had to put them to work in the palace. She had to put them to work just making napkins, because it's not like she could just go, okay, now you're going to be a potter and go out and compete with the pottery guild.
Yeah.
Or whatever. She probably had enough trouble with whatever their Weavers Guild was.
Yeah.
But who gives a shit about a room full of napkins? That's my little conspiracy theory, that Kyla the Good is essentially FDR, and I harp on that because so much of the Dark Tower mirrors our world, but it's like a fantasy version. Of course, Stephen King just gets inspired by stuff. Every author does. Look at George R.R. Martin. And is the new book The Winds of Winter? Is it all The Winds of Winter? No, it's all A Song of Ice and Fire.
It's all A Song of Ice and Fire, and I believe the new installment is going to be called The Winds of Winter.
Okay. Well, obviously, The War of the Roses is his big... And I promise, I'm not going to sit here and tell you my theory on who every single person is. I'm not going to talk about it literally at all. I'm just saying everybody gets inspired by stuff. They get inspired by stuff that's within the real world. I do think that the Dark Tower goes deeper than just inspired by stuff.
Yeah.
And I wonder if this is actually a place that goes deeper, or where he was inspired by stuff and then decided to use it later. I don't know. Kyla the Good herself is probably not that linchpin, but he has so much other shit that comes up. I do wonder if now in his head he's like, and that's FDR.
Well, and even if it's not in his head, like, actively, I imagine it is a little bit like, that is how you recover from something that's really challenging, is someone has to come in and fix it with some kind of plan, and a lot of times that plan includes putting people to work.
Yeah.
So,
because didn't she also like reinstate some like saints days or feast days or something where people drank?
I don't remember.
I could be wrong. I gotta look.
Either way,
Sorry,
so
I get so deep into it. I'm sorry.
Kyla the Good gets people working on napkins, and so they get this massive stockpile, which is what Peter is pulling from to make his rope. Only he doesn't know that there's a huge stockpile. So that's why it's taking him so fucking long, because he won't take too many threads at a time. And I gotta say, I love that the narrator repeatedly points out that if Peter had just stopped for like one moment to think about it and look at the napkins that he was being brought, because he's thinking that, they're reusing the same group. Like, he's got one little stockpile, and every meal he's getting brought from that same like allotment of 20. Or whatever amount he seems to think that there are. So he can't make them look too frayed too fast. But he's not stopping to notice that they're not shrinking in size in any way. And it's because these motherfuckers have so many napkins, they're basically taking them from him and just tossing them in the trash. And the narrator just keeps like repeating how if Peter had just thought about it and stopped dumbassing for a moment, he probably would have escaped so much sooner, because no one was paying any attention to what he was doing.
Do you think that's one of those like fairy tale moral moments of like he's not paying attention to what he's doing?
I would say so. I think it's something, pay attention to your surroundings, what you're doing, think about it. And it's mostly because the narrator very painstakingly goes out of their way to bring this up a couple of times of like, yeah, if Peter had just like realized the napkins weren't getting smaller, oh yeah, Peter could have escaped much sooner.
Do you think it also but implies that maybe history is not Peter's strongest subject? Because he would have learned, like, that's, if Kyla wasn't Roland's mom, and I know it says Roland's mom's name at the beginning of the book, and I just can't fucking remember now, but Kyla certainly is his ancestor, yes. The same way Alan was. That's how he recognizes Levin Valera's name. Yeah. But he remembers that name because there was a bunch of drama with it. Times were good under Kyla, so he's not remembering this like public work that she put in place. Do you think, like, one, that that's implying that history is not his best subject, and two, that maybe it's actually implying that he's not that great as far as king material? Because everything that they keep showing as far as, look what a great king he'd be, is him being really demanding and kind of stepping in for a specific individual and never actually for the entire country of Delain, which Sasha did at times, but Peter never really does.
That's a really good point.
It just occurred to me.
I hadn't thought about it, because the book kind of repeatedly tells you like how good he's going to be at this job, but I do think it's weird that he had no idea that this happened, because like that is weird. What part of that did he not bother himself with, or did he not pay attention to his history? Was he not into history? Or did it not matter because they were, napkins?
And he was only actually caring because he was told to.
Yeah.
He was doing it in memory of his mother, he didn't understand why it actually mattered. He was just doing it because he was told, I need to do this. I think, honestly, there are a lot of points where Peter lacks critical thinking skills that you see Thomas exhibit. Yeah. But because Thomas has been told so many times, you are not as good as your brother, and you will not make as good a king as your brother, and then ascends the throne. I'm almost positive he's 12 when he becomes king. And there's kind of this idea of like, well, you're shitty. And it's like, well, he's a child. he was always going to be. That's why Flag pretty much runs the country, because there's no regency. There was no plan in place for what would happen if Peter couldn't, like, nobody cared to... Oh, that's a whole separate topic.
No one bothered to actually prepare Thomas for this position because he was never meant to hold it.
Yeah, they prepared Thomas for nothing.
Yeah, no, they had no expectations of that boy, which I think is why the narrator goes out of their way to constantly repeat, he is not a bad boy.
Yeah.
He's not. He's a kid who he is Hoover, I guess. Like, if that position is accurate, he is Hoover. He's in a shitty position. I don't know. He's not really enjoying most of it because, I mean, he doesn't end up falling into, like, the drinking and the kind of...
Yeah.
Just, like, opulence of it all.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he doesn't really know what else to do, and Flag is doing all of the politics for him.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't even know how to do the politics in the first place. He knows how to fire a bow. Which he was never even credited enough with.
Yeah, honestly, I think, and I'll wait until we're actually done with the book. I want to talk about Thomas and how bad of a king maybe he actually was, and how bad he was necessarily compared to Peter. Because Peter also ignored shit. Like, he wanted to run off with a girl the night, like, that he wasn't, like... That the night that Roland is poisoned. It's because he wants to go meet a girl. We never find out her name. We never find out anything about her. He's out literally catting around. Which is fun. Like, he's a teenage boy. That's probably fine. But I'm just saying there's layers here. And again, like, Peter has always been my favorite character. He's one of my favorite Stephen King characters. But I think that this idea that Thomas is just shitty at this, well, I don't necessarily think that. He's very young. I think he's 16 by the time the story ends. He's like 16 or 17. There's that whole line about how, like, oh, when if I think too much, it's like Roland, oh, my head gets stuffy or my nose gets stuffy or whatever. But Roland also didn't believe in himself because he had this mother who was this ultra beloved, ultra good queen, and so he kind of just decided for himself he couldn't do any better, when in reality he wasn't that bad. He had to be as neutral as he was, with as bad of an advisor as he had. He must have been doing something okay. But Peter, like, never once, I think, at least certainly to the point where we've gotten, has made a decision that has to do with all of Delain.
Yeah.
It's always him or the person directly in front of him.
Yeah.
It never has to do... The only time he does make a decision for everybody in Delain is when he sets aside the crown so that way they can have a fair trial. Otherwise...
Which was trash. Their fair trial seems like it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's...
Send in your applications for jury duty.
More just follow us on Insta or on other socials so that way you can receive your summons to jury duty the proper and right way. But no, he's just not... It more feels like he was handsome because he looked like his mom.
And Stephen King, if you look at the illustrations in the book.
Yeah, that's really uncomfortable. It's like, very funny.
Ridiculously like Stephen King.
Yeah.
That photo of him on the back there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
It's very funny.
I'm trying to find that.
That is the funniest thing. It's the most incongruous thing. He looks nothing like his description and everything like Stephen King. It's the same with Roland. Roland Deschain is supposed to look like Clint Eastwood. And he looks like if Stephen King and Clint Eastwood had a baby. It's my favorite thing in the world. They say that as an author, like, you put some of yourself into everything. Stephen King has no... All he has is the audacity. I'll just put it that way.
I mean, that depends. Is he the one who said, yeah, no, draw them like me? Or was it, like, whoever illustrated this who went, I'm gonna draw this like Stephen King?
He definitely has to okay it.
I'm sure he has to okay it, but is that the, like...
He could have said, like, give him a stronger nose. This isn't right. and I'm not trying to talk shit on Stephen King's nose, but I think that's what makes it look so recognizable, is that Stephen King's nose is very recognizable, I feel like. And had it been a more, like, a stronger, like, give him like a Romanesque beak or something, and he wouldn't look this much like Stephen King. It's disturbing.
I think what, like, did it for me, it wasn't even the nose on the drawing. I'm trying to find the damn one anyway. It's the, like, not smile, like Mona Lisa, like, yeah, this is just, like, neutral. No, it is. It's Mona Lisa Stephen King. Alright, so, all that said, we basically come to the end of this section of the book where we have Dennis and the judge know about Flag. Peter is about ready to make his escape. Thomas is clearly struggling. Flag is also struggling as he's trying to find the nobles, like the Stod family who have fled the city. And we are pretty much... The stage is about set for the falsely accused prince to take his rightful place. Though now there's some argument to whether or not he deserves that place. So, you know what? We
He deserves it by birth. I mean, if only rulers who were going to be good rulers got to be rulers, there'd be no rulers. So, don't listen to me. The only person who would rule anything would be Bernie Sanders.
All right, so we've talked about a lot of the, like, tropes here that Stephen King uses, and let's like really get into it, and that is the nature of Peter's status as a Gary Stew. So, to anyone who is unfamiliar with the term Gary Stew, it is you probably have more often heard it as a Mary Sue. Gary Stew is the male version. I don't believe we have a gender neutral name, but I feel like we have to kind of make up something.
I did accidentally write it as Mary Stew.
Mary Stew, okay. So
we could write Mary like Marryadoc. Mary.
Okay.
So,
and to anybody who somehow has managed to get through this far in life and doesn't know what a Mary Sue / Gary Stew or Mary Stew, Mary spelled a very specific way, is.
Gender neutral can be Carrie Lou. Because
I really like that.
Carrie Elwes, Carrie, and then Lou is just...
I am here for Carrie Lou.
Okay, so the gender neutral form of Mary Sue or Gary Stew will be Carrie Lou.
Yep, it is thus decided.
Because you can spell Carrie the same as Mary or Gary.
So yeah, if you are unfamiliar with this trope, it is a seemingly perfect character with no flaws who always overpowers other characters. Not necessarily physically, it can be in other things, like they're the prettiest, they're the smartest, they can be the strongest, the fastest, the clumsiest. And, you know, we speak lovingly of tropes, and we do criticize them, but we fucking love a good trope in this house.
Yeah.
So, please don't take any of our shitting on a trope as us not liking it. It's just like, we're razzing it.
Yeah. I love a Mary Sue.
We love a Mary
Sue. Sometimes you need it. It's a little like escapism. Exactly.
You know, we all deserve that in our lives. Stephen King is my understanding of what you've told me, what I have read, The Eyes of the Dragon, he is not afraid of the Gary Stew, because I think you've described even Roland in a little bit of a Gary Stew, like Roland the Gunslinger Roland, not King Roland, Ace King.
We'll have to talk about that when we get to the Dark Tower. I think that because Mary Sue, Gary Stew, Carrie Lou, it's the flawlessness that we get with those characters, and Roland Deschain is almost defined by his flaws.
Yeah.
He's if I remember right, he's just an extremely flawed character. His flaws are what drives the plot, quite frankly. So that's it's easier here to say that we have many of the Stu clan running around, and I think it's because it's meant to be a less complicated story.
Yes.
And because it's not meant to have kind of the scarier elements. I think that's what makes it hard for Stephen King, is like, well, when I can't be chopping body parts off of people to make them learn lessons, you know, when I can't be like horribly killing people's family members to force them to learn lessons and like traumatizing the pick me out of them, like, I don't think he quite knows what to do.
No, that's fair. Well, and even in our conversation today, we did touch that Peter isn't perfect. He does have flaws. He didn't know his own history a little bit there.
Yeah.
He didn't notice that these napkins weren't getting smaller.
Yeah.
But he is very seemingly perfect.
Yeah.
Because I can say, even when I read this the first time years ago, I was not picking up on those flaws. He was presented in such an unrealistic way. Whereas, like, the book goes out of its way to point out all of Thomas's flaws.
Right.
It's like, oh yeah, he's drunk. Now he's basically bow-legged like his dad.
I think the difference is Peter is a Mary Sue within the world. The other characters would see him as a Mary Sue because he's perfect and flawless according to their like rules and regulations. They don't like what they consider to be a strong person and a strong king and a strong, like, what they consider strength, what they consider like cool. Peter meets all those qualifications. And if you're, like, now we're going to whip out the anthropology, if you're going in and you're kind of leaving your own cultural self and, you know, misconceptions, or not misconceptions, but your own, like, preconceptions of how the world should work. Think about reading this like reading Dune. Like, nothing...
I still have so many confusing feelings about Dune.
That's what makes it a good book.
It is. Like, I still am not entirely sure if I enjoyed Dune, but I think I did.
And our Lord and Savior Henry Zebrowski would say, then you're doing it right. Like, you did Dune right then.
You know what? As long as he doesn't show up at the door to, like, beat my ass because I'm not clear on Dune, I'm good.
I thought you meant clear like Scientology clear. Like you have Dune body thetans. And you know what? If it gets me attention from Daddy Zebrowski, I'll take it.
You know, I could see him starting the actual Church of Dune.
Yeah. He loves L. Ron Hubbard in a really bizarre way for someone who's not a Scientologist. And I kind of respect it. I would probably go Scientology if Henry Zebrowski went Scientology. Hi, last pod. Anyways, I think that's interesting. He is a Mary Sue within the world. But once you step out of it and you're looking at it with like our feelings and thoughts, we're like, what the actual fuck? It's not, you do it less with this book, but I do think that kind of, I'm interested to see if that carries through with other Stephen King books.
That is actually my point. I want to list out, hence the giant piece of paper.
Oh god.
Amongst other things. This is for the board.
Okay.
This is the board for, like, King intricacies here.
Do you want me to write it?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay.
Hopefully the Sharpie works. So let's track our Mary Sue, Gary Stu, Carrie Lou offenses.
I'm going to be the one writing it because I talk much louder so you can still hear me.
So we are starting with Prince Peter.
Okay.
As arguably our main character.
Do you want me to list it or do you want me to like make a web?
You know what? Let's start with the list and we'll make it look pretty later.
Okay. Just PB?
Yep, that's fine. Because we're 9. Thomas may not be, but we kind of are.
Maybe that's why I thought he was 9. Because, like, then he'd match my soul.
What do we identify as a Mary Sue, Gary Stu, Carrie Lou?
The biggest thing, like growing up in the age of fan fiction, that always hit for the Sue family was just like a lack of true flaws. Like, your flaws make you better, and then everybody loves you. And when I say love, I mean falls in love.
Yeah, your clumsiness is cute.
Yeah. So cute flaws. Well, but that's the thing. He doesn't have cute flaws. He ends up with a giant scar down his face that like his beard won't even grow there. But everybody does love Peter, and that gets talked about over and over and over and over again. Like, that's a huge part of the story and the plot, that everybody loves Peter. So I wouldn't, unless you want to say that him like giving people random titles is a cute flaw, but I just took it as he's somebody who's above everybody else. He reminded me of like Princess Diana in that way, especially for the era it was written in. It was more like, I'm above you, but I'm giving you a lot of respect. So not even the way that he gave people titles was like flawed. So
yeah. I think, like, let's put it in terms of, like, within the world. Because you're right. The people who see him within, they are... Flaws is such a weird word for it. They're almost, like, revering him for behaviors that...
It's the Mary Poppins effect. The practically perfect in every way.
Yes.
So I would say Mary Poppins effect, and everybody loves him in some way.
Yes, because that's how I would really describe Peter, is practically perfect in every way, but there is that practically. I think one of the moments that I really felt like his Sue quality like stood out was when, with very little prompting, he figured out so quickly that it was Flag. And it just kind of helps drive it home when he finds the letter from Levin. But he'd already figured out when the judge hadn't. And the judge is kind of being wishy-washy about it. And he's like thinking to himself, oh, this was Flag's doing.
Is that from exposure to Flag, though? Because most people avoid Flag because of Roland's like relationship with Flag. Peter and Thomas saw him all the time.
Yeah, but Peter even is described as avoiding him too.
So basically just the idea, Peter is the smartest. Even when he was little, like, no, that horse is going to be fine and I'm going to get a horse doctor. Still the prettiest in quotation marks because he's just the estest of the est. Even when he's with like Ben Stott, who's supposed to be like his second in command, he's always just a little bit more than whatever Ben Stott is. And I will tell you, when we get to the Dark Tower, there's going to be similar relationships, because there's going to be like Roland and Cuthbert, which I have always felt was really similar to Peter and Ben Stott. And I'm excited to see if it looks similar to you two. And to everybody else.
Well, that's something to look forward to.
Yeah. Still the actual prettiest, because he's also handsome. Stephen King handsome, which I feel like is a Mary Sue trait. He is specifically good looking, even though Roland, like, nobody else around him is, but because his mom happens to be, which dead mom feels like a Mary Sue trait too. Like,
that's
having
true.
a dead parent, having like the tragic, sad dead parent past, tragic backstory that only makes the character more
strong.
Yeah, or like more, I was going to say attractive, but I don't mean like physically attractive, like more...
Appealing?
Yes, appealing. Because not even sympathetic is right. Tragic backstories tend to make you sympathetic.
Yeah.
But appealing is the right word, because you just scoop them up, but they're not harmed by it. It's not a flaw. A lot of people who go through trauma they don't come out stronger and cooler for it.
No, they need therapy. And frankly, you know what? The way that everyone put Peter up on a pedestal is also pretty damaging to someone's psyche. Let's be clear. Even if you have a favorite child, if you are treating them so much better than their sibling, it screws with their head. It's not good for either child.
But not Peter. Peter is the nicest and bestest and most psychologically healthy, which is also a Mary Sue trait.
Yeah.
The more we dig, because that's like classic Mary Sue-dom.
Nothing's gonna keep them down.
Because that doesn't even feel like a Mary Poppins thing. That's a very specific thing to Mary Sue's. Nice to everybody.
To a flaw.
Yes. But not an actual flaw.
You can treat them like dirt and they will... Well, I mean, they'll turn the other cheek.
I do think this one ties into that whole giving people, like, Lord High Groom and stuff like that. It's the almost codependent nature of, like, ultra people-pleasing. That's what it is. It's ultra people-pleasing.
So, yes, we have listed out Peter's offenses. He has the Mary Poppins effect. Everybody loves him. He's still the prettiest.
Quote, I put quotes around prettiest because he's still the est.
Yeah. Basically, we're using that as a stand-in for being the bestest of the best.
Yeah.
He has a tragic backstory that only makes him more appealing. And he is nice and sweet to everyone, no matter what. And he's just super people-pleasing.
Yeah. He's like the megazord of people-pleasing.
And again, we enjoy good Mary Sue, Gary Stu, Carrie Lou.
That's how we know this.
Yes.
But we enjoy a good Carrie Lou.
We do. We will track that and we will compare Peter to other King protagonists and see how he measures up.
Yeah.
And if the King does have a thing for the Mary Sue trope. Okay. So then, my final thing that I want to bring to this table,
I get to sit back down now,
is so the narrator mentions a guy named Curran, and he says he may tell us of him in another story. This is a really weird throwaway line. Do you know if Curran ever shows back up in anything?
How's it spelled?
Curran. I just need to know if this check is going to get cashed.
It might be Curran. It might be Curran. What did he... I
got it. In my paperback copy of The Eyes of the Dragon on page 217, they made no more wagers that night, and in fact, one of them went to the Church of the Great Gods the very next day and embraced his religion again, and eventually became a priest. The man's name was Curran, and I may tell you of him in another story, and that is all that he says about that.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Okay.
I haven't read Little Sisters of Illyria.
Okay.
I wouldn't be shocked if that was... Because Little Sisters of Illyria is about, like, creepy nun types.
Yeah.
He also could be, like a throwaway for... Like, not a throwaway, but he could just be somewhere else in, like, Midworld. Or Endworld, or All-World. Like, there's so many places we're going to go.
There are many constant worlds.
Yes. And here's the other thing, many fluctuating worlds, which we haven't touched. I think that it's worth keeping our eyes peeled.
Okay, because I need to know what happened to this man.
What I wonder is if his name gets changed. So I would definitely keep eyes peeled for anybody whose story sounds similar to this one, because the other thing is he could end up with a different name in a different world with a similar story, because my knee-jerk reaction is the priest from Salem's Lot, but I don't remember. I don't remember enough. I read Salem's Lot like almost 20 years ago. So I guess we're gonna have to see everybody, and if somebody knows,
tell me. I need to know.
Don't tell her.
I need to see
tease her.
What happened to this guy.
Tease her with, like, bits and pieces of information. Even if he doesn't show back up, make her think that it's going to happen. Like, tell her the most ridiculous things. Just make up your own story about Curran or Curran or Karen. Karen? Did he maybe go off and become Karen? Now my brain is coming up with a story where he went off to embrace the retail gods and became the Lord of the Karens. If somebody writes that story, I will read it, out loud. I will make a special, recording and read it out loud. And despite how awful I am at talking normally, I read fairly okay. So it'll be great. It'll be fun. Since that pretty much brings us to the end, we've done everything that we could possibly do. It's time to see what the cards hold for us this week. Last week, we pulled the Knight of Cups, implying one who is in tune with their emotions, following their heart, be it logical or illogical.
Sounds like Peter.
Yeah, it does kind of fit this section of the book pretty well. It's been pretty impressive how well we've been pulling, and that's coming from two people who use tarot kind of in daily enough.
Yeah.
Daily enough, but who believe in tarot to begin with. Now we're doing it in such a way as people who maybe don't believe in tarot or hearing it, and it still fits.
Yep.
It'll always fit.
It'll always fit.
Because it basically is like, you might eat toast ever again in your life, and yeah,
it makes you think more critically about the things you are experiencing. That is my argument. We are paying attention to the napkins, even if Peter isn't.
I feel like Peter pays more attention to the napkins than anybody else. He's one of those guys who's kind of dumb, but has been told he's very, very smart his whole life. So he's like, I'm a genius. And it's like, you know what, baby? Yes, you are. Maybe he's a himbo, but
he's a himbo, yeah.
Either way, Thomas, Peter, Flag, and Dennis, interestingly enough, Flag too, all did follow their emotions and ended up in some unique spots. Thomas revealed his secret peephole. Peter didn't question his napkin source, and it cost himself years of freedom, though I wonder if there's a reason why fate might have wanted him to have to spend those years there.
That's fair.
Flag fucked around and is about to find out, and Dennis followed his king, then made a run for the judge. So let's see what the cards hold for us in the next week. Let's see if it's going to tell us literally exactly what's about to happen next time, because, you know, the last card told us exactly the whole plot. So I have pulled the Page of Wands.
I like this guy's hat.
I did not notice his hat. From here, it looks like he's wearing a leopard print, like, jerkin. And at first I was like, what the fuck is that? And then in my head answered for myself, it's called fashion. So apparently that's the mood I'm in.
The Page of Wands. Oh, God, yeah. The Page of Wands embodies passionate, raw potential. Great ideas exist, but haven't come to fruition because of inexperience or fear. We can't make this up, dude.
We did. I didn't even cut the deck. I just pulled the top card
shuffled
off the deck. Like,
oh man, that is wild to me.
So when I said that it's just gonna say you might eat toast ever again in your life, or you might not, I didn't expect it to be that, like, your plans are coming to fruition. From here, we are going to go ahead and take on the last of this book. We are going to finally be done with it. We're going to find out how our boy's napkin plan works out for him. We're going to finally meet the dog lady who I have so grievously misnamed. Ben comes back.
We're going to learn about the power of friendship.
And that maybe the napkins were the friends we made along the way. And in order to do that, we're going to read from stanzas 84 to the end. So just make it on out.
Just finish that bitch up. So until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.
And go now. There are other worlds than these.
You can find us on Instagram at Mini Constant Worlds.